before we start, Neha and I were inspired to do this panel because we were, Dragon Age Inquisition had just come out, as in like it was out for 2 weeks, and we were talking about playing it, and I had a very tough time because I started the game as a Kunari because this was awesome and I wanted to play as a Kunari, and I got 2 hours in and I went, you know what, I don't really like the way I look, and I restarted the game to make another Kunari, and then I got about 3 hours in and I was like, I can't, it's not me, and like made a human that looked exactly like me and then managed to like power through it. And we were talking about how like how long did you spend making your character?
Oh, I spent like a day, because I feel like
You weren't playing. I was like, what are you doing? You're like,
because I started with, I mean, so I'm one of the few people that actually really like playing as a dude. Like I enjoy playing as a man, and so like I started as a human man, then I did Kunari man, and then I actually ended up playing as a Kunari woman, which is like kind of weird for me because I almost never do that, like do like the female perspective usually. So, but we ended up having this conversation about this because, you know, we're like, oh, I wonder why that is, and why was it that you couldn't get into the game as that, and why was it that I like decided to play as something completely different than I actually do?
And we assembled this like awesome Avengers team of smart people here to talk about this. And we're going to talk about, you know, how people, we're going to like throw out some numbers and statistics, and Mike's going to talk about Dragon Age, it's going to be awesome. Talking about how we identify with player-created characters and how we identify with maybe games like Tomb Raider or Uncharted, where you have like a fully formed human and how you sort of identify with them. And before we start, I wanted to share this quote from Leveling Up for Dummies by, I misspelled their name, I hope they're not seeing the audience. It's Rohin Guha, not Duha. There's this really great article on the toast.net. And he says, he writes about growing up queer and how he always played as Peach because he identified with Peach and people would make fun of him. And it says, yet for kids and for anyone whose reality is cactus prickly at all turns, even the finiteness of video games is an escape. If the rules in the physical world fail to establish order, the physics of the video game universe can provide a reprieve. By living and breathing these physics, many of us learn something about ourselves. We come back to reality slightly different people, and perhaps with enhanced problem-solving skills, more motivated to try and face the challenges that present themselves in the real world. Now, I don't think anyone here hasn't been deeply touched by a game in some way. I see a lot of cosplayers here that have put a lot of time into, you know, making what you're wearing. And we just want to talk about, you know, how we connect to these playable characters, how games are an escape, my notes messed up, never mind. And why we make those choices, why we play as male or female. Neha says she likes to play as male. Mitch always plays as a chick.
Yeah, when available, yeah. Oh, I thought, do you want follow-up?
We'll get there if you don't want to follow up right now. And talk to you guys about how, like, have a dialogue about how it affects how we consume a story. Elisa here. Okay, this is us, sorry, I should put this up earlier. These are all of our Twitter handles if you want to follow us, tweet at us, stuff like that. I'm going to let you just start talking because you studied something in college and did some really awesome shit. So
I did?
You did.
Oh, I guess I did. All right, let's talk
Go
about
on.
it. All right. Oh, perfect. All right. So, as part of my research, to sort of introduce it, my main project of study is looking at intersections of gender and authenticity in rock music video games, like Rock Band and Rocksmith in particular. But through the course of my research, you have to study sort of wider game studies literature. And even as part of my sort of sociology class taking, one of my instructors introduced me to a phenomenon called the Proteus effect that was coined by this researcher by the name of Nick Yee, and is also a part of a sort of big, wide, awesome project called the Daedalus Project that you can actually search online. Unfortunately, it's in hibernation mode. He hasn't really been updating it as much since maybe 2008, 2009, but it's over, he's sampled, it was sort of a self-selected sample of 40,000 MMO players that helped contribute to this research, and he just gathered a deluge of data, and I'm picking out some of the things that he saw there. So the kind of sort of seminal project, the Proteus effect, basically had, it was an experiment where there were 2 people in a room, they couldn't see each other, And one of them was a participant in the research project and was tasked to do some very, very specific things. Basically just communicate with this other person in a virtual space. And the research participant, the research subject, was assigned an avatar and was told to communicate with this other person that was in this virtual space. And they found that if they were assigned a more conventionally attractive avatar or a taller avatar, they found that they were more confident in their sort of virtual approach. They walked closer to the other character, they felt more confident, they opened up more and divulged more personal information in conversation with the other player, and that was simply because of what their avatar looked like. So that sort of goes to show that a lot of what our avatars look like and what they do kind of has an effect on player behavior. And the Proteus effect also speaks to the idea that some of those attributes also bleed in to our everyday lives. And the idea that avatars give us a sense of agency, of efficacy, of being able to make change and kind of kick ass in our world, and that bleeds into our, not real life, because it's all real to me, but in our fleshy life. It bleeds into our fleshy life, and it actually affects people. And the more you closely identify with your character and the more potentially attractive they are, the more likely you are to experience more confidence in real life. Like, people are more divulgent in even things like online dating profiles and more confident in going out there and doing stuff, and that's kind of cool. Other research that he did is just basically asking about things like character creation and what goes into building a character. And he found that typically, for the most part, people like to be either average or attractive/graceful when creating their character. So people are either, in terms of attractiveness, they like to either be average, and mostly men are more likely to be average, but then women are more likely to want to be an attractive avatar. Not a lot of people chose to be hideous and scary. Good choice.
We actually, when Inquisition came out, we were making, people in the office were making characters for footage, and one of our guys made this is just an anecdote, made a very, like an old lady, Canary lady.
That's exactly what I did.
And named her Grandma Stabbins.
I cannot name Stabbins.
Yes.
That's a way better name than mine.
And she was like, and he played his whole playthrough was Grandma Stabbins, and it was awesome. And there was something really awesome though about seeing this like wizened old Canary woman like running around with the iron ball. Like that was hot.
The myth, the legend, Grandma
Grandma Stabbins.
Grandma Stabbins.
The other amazing example, the folks that made Gone Home, the Fulbright crew, they kept tweeting pictures of their incredibly aged female human character with this deep orange tan named Tuna Melt. And we were like fresh from the tanning bed, ready to save the world. I was like, wow. And they kept getting awesome pictures of our armor getting better and stuff. It was quite a progress to follow.
That's awesome. Continue.
And then in terms of, what kinds of things are the most important when creating a character, class type. Some people actually, and we might get into this, like actually say, I will always want to play as a mage, or I will always want to play as a priest, or whatever. Like whatever option is closest to that thing, that's the thing that I'm gonna pick. The class abilities, if they know that maybe, there's a little bit more of like a tanking sort of thing versus a healing sort of thing, they kind of want to look at their class abilities. But then the third most popular reason, the third most popular thing that goes into character creation is race aesthetic. So the idea of what it is that we look like is pretty important to us too, as well as all that other stuff. And then in terms of identity projection, so how closely you say that your avatar is a representation of you, and the sort of flip side of that question was, I think of my avatars as pawns in a game. So people were pretty likely to think of their avatars as idealized versions of themselves, but you can see that there are certain sex differences as well as sort of age differences. And you can tell that it slightly increases as people get older than 35. So I guess like the older you are, and as well as the younger you are, the more likely you think of your character as a like badass version of myself or something to that effect. And I see that exact thing kind of play out in my own research. So I did a survey as part of my Rock Band research. I wanted to interview some players and see what they thought about the games and stuff. And a third of my respondents, when I asked them, what does your rock band, rock star look like? A third of them mentioned themselves at some point. So examples like, looks like a cartoonish version of me, or a stylized version of myself but with flashier, more performance-oriented clothing. Or I would make my character to represent my appearance and style as if I was a rocker, but then also playing to sort of rock star type stereotypes. But there was a lot of looks just like me, or as much as me like as possible, or I try to get even my same clothes, or like me in the face but different clothes, or like me but just a little bit skinnier, whatever. So things things like that. And that was about a third of the respondents, which is pretty cool.
And this is you.
And that's me in all of my forms. So I don't know. Do you think that my avatars represent a stylized version of myself? I don't know.
Melisandre, that's an awesome name.
It's great. It's basically combining like all of my awesome things. Also like a reference to like Melisandre from from Game of Thrones, because Fire Woman and stuff. And that's my Inquisitor. I wanted her to be impossibly fierce, especially with her eye makeup. I want to.
The funny thing is that my Canary Girl, like her eyes are very 80s fabulous. Like it's very, like a ton of eye makeup. Like I would probably never wear makeup like that, but
and
it's
I don't know
fantastic.
if they get time
very
for
Gemma
touch-ups in the hinterlands.
Right?
I don't know either. But
yeah.
Where is the Sephora in the hinterlands? I don't know. But she gets it done.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. That's really awesome. Before we get into this part of the presentation, this is also, I'm throwing this to you because you did it, Neha did a ton of research for this panel, and when we were talking about all the studies that we were reading, you had this really great rant about making me's. And I would like you to share the rant.
Yeah, I remember when I first got my 3DS like many years ago, and I was trying to create my me. And well, first of all, like they're very round. And I'm not saying I'm not round, but I'm just saying that I have like a jawline, and I have like things, and I was like flipping through, and I couldn't find like the exact skin tone, and I was like so frustrated because I was like, okay, well, I could either be a much darker or whiter version than myself, but I can't be me. Like I can't be like the color that I like, no pun intended, but like I couldn't be like the color that I am, and I don't know why. That was like really, really important to me. And I mean, it was great that I could have like the same type of like eyeglasses I wear, but just like something like that, like having like the proper skin color was like really important to me, and I couldn't have that. But so I ended up going with the darker version of myself. I was like, yeah, okay, if I was outside in the sun, I guess I would look this way.
But yeah, this is from a study. I'm gonna toss it to you. It's from a study conducted by York University and published in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin this past January, actually. And it says, despite avatars being whatever an individual wants them to be, that person's personality can come through and be communicated accurately to others. Who we are in real life does, in some extent, drive our choices in deciding how to represent ourselves online. So that's, you tend to create, or most people tend to create a version of themselves that they want to be their ideal self, so they get to be their true self when they are behaving online.
Yeah, so I mean, in the study, it was interesting because, it was very much about how our personalities shine through as our virtual selves. So Katrina Fong, she found that outgoing and sociable individuals, for example, would create avatars that communicated their outgoing and sociable personality. So there would be qualities like open eyes and smiling and brown hair, wearing a sweater. I know those are like very weird kind of things. Like but it was like really specific things. And then people who were high in neuroticism tend to create avatars that actually don't really communicate their personality accurately. So they found that people who were, a little less social would often create characters that would have an expression other than smiling. And for whatever reason, if other than smiling, any other expression was kind of seen as like negative or like not friendly. And then, you know, having like dark hair and, you know, obscuring their face or their hair or that kind of thing. So it's kind of very interesting that like people often, even though you think like, oh, I'm just like creating this character, like a lot of it has to do with who you are in real life. You know, like that is a thing. And so we have a show at GameSpot called Reality Check, and I don't know if any of you guys have watched that, but Cam did this interesting two-part series where he actually dove into and talked about why we create the avatars we do. And again, it was kind of around the time the Dragon Age came out. And so we have a video clip here of the folks in our UK office just kind of designing their characters.
It's really funny.
When you've got all of the options available to you, I think I naturally go towards trying to build me.
I kind of always make a character that has essence of me, but then is better than I am. Better cheekbones than I am.
Generally, they're not as short or weedy in video game land, so it's kind of like me if I was put into an ausometer machine or something like that.
I'm gonna go for two-handed warrior because I like the idea of just attacking without defending.
Is there the option to give myself a bum chin? Because
it's the bum chin slider.
Chin slider. How much of a bum do you want your chin to look like? I'd like it to look quite like a bum.
Jowls, no.
I tend to name my characters after war leaders. So, yeah, so Napoleon, Churchill, things like that.
Done. Basil the Destroyer, he is ready.
Wonderful. Drugon.
Very good.
I'm going with Drugon.
That's awesome. Yeah, so those are like our coworkers being silly with Dragon Age.
Yeah. And you know, there was another interesting article that I read. It was actually a photo project by a photographer named Scott Chazaret, I don't know. And he did this thing where he took a photo of, so the photo on the left is the actual, and then he used a brain scanner. I don't know, this is like some hi-fi technology here, where he had people like think about like how they would want to look like in real life. And you know, it's interesting because almost all of them, I mean, there's a whole series, if you go on if you actually Google original ideal, you'll find it. But I mean, some of them are not so different. If you see the gentleman on the top, like it's a little bit different, but then the really interesting one is the child. And in the article that Aria Bendix wrote in Bustle, she says, subconsciously, most of us may be unhappy with our appearance or wish it were more in line with normative beauty standards. What's particularly powerful for me is Chazaret's photograph of a young child whose ideal image features a more structured jawline, blue eyes instead of brown. The disparity between this image and the original is living proof of how deeply ingrained our concept of beauty is at a young age. So that's pretty...
How old is that kid? She's got to be like 5.
Yeah, maybe like
Oof,
4 or 5.
that is apocalyptic. That is so crazy that a child has like that sensibility to me. That is so, this is just awful.
Yeah, starts young.
And I'm over here thinking about how we could get the brain scanner to make CareGen go.
That would be amazing.
What do you want to be like?
Just put a helmet on, done.
There. This is you.
And then I did a quick little poll on, you know, I asked a bunch of my Twitter followers like how they prefer to be represented in a game. And, you know, most people either said that, like, I don't really have like, I play as different characters all the time, while, you know, the second most common answer was that I like to choose characters of the same gender as me and look like me, which is, you know, again, like Alexa's whole thing with Dragon Age, like, you have to...
I have to be human. I only know how to be human, so I feel very weird when I try to play as something else. It's, I don't know, weird.
Yeah, and I mean, I think moving on, you know, there's a man named Mark Colson who has also done research in this. He's a reader, psychology reader at Middlesex University, and he says what online worlds allow us to do is take complete control of our appearance and allow our psychology to drive our behavior. What we tend to find is that people who are more comfortable with themselves don't have such a strong preferences for creating heroic or beautiful avatars. So again, having more of a realistic representation of themselves. And it's interesting too, because this is like, so I really like playing as a male, as we kind of discussed here, but less than 10% of females usually play as men, whereas 30% of men like to play as females. So I'm gonna toss it over to you. Why is it that you like to play as a female, or what is it that's appealing?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier that you prefer to play as a man, and I suspected that percentage would be really low. I was going to ask you why you wanted to play as a dude, but I can answer first. So I don't have a clear answer, oh, this is why. It's this clear solution. But part of it, I think, I play anytime the option is available to me. I play as a woman in a game. I played on the Plane Sorcery on iOS, which is a tabletop thing. And it gives you the option of beginning to pick this dude or this lady warrior, and it affects nothing except the little teeny tiny JPEG of a character. And the world doesn't respond to you differently at all, but I was oh, cool, play the pirate lady, awesome, let's rock. Played it, nothing changed, it was totally innocuous, it didn't matter. I think a lot of the time when I play a woman in a game, especially Dragon Age is a really good example to keep coming back to because we have Mike here, but most of the time when I play a female, I just want to see how the world engages with women, because I have a pretty clear idea of how my own world engages with women instead of men, and more often than not, a lot of the time people are oh, I'm not going to listen to you because you're a lady, and that kind of stuff happens a lot. I think it was the DLC for Dragon Age 1 when you could play as the Orlesian warden, right?
Yeah.
I think I played that as a woman, and I played through most of Origins as a man. And it was interesting because I was under suspicion from a lot of people, oh, you're this Orlesian, but also you're a woman. And there was a really interesting dynamic to having to deal with that I don't know that it's I like dealing with it because it sounds weird, but it's interesting that so many games just don't have that kind of approach when with men. Men in games are not well, you're just some man, I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. There's a sense of authority in male video game characters that women don't have, and I think it's just interesting to see how game worlds approach that.
Which is, I think, some of the reason why I actually really like playing as a man.
That dominance?
Yeah, having that, take no bullshit,
right.
No judgment really, oh, it's just you're one of the guys, and
See, I love doing that. I love playing as a woman because I get to do that. I get that kind of thing, that kind of judgment from people. I'm no, fuck off. I'm not just some girl. I'm awesome, and I'm gonna conquer this judgment from you.
Yeah. I mean, and interestingly enough, there's something called the Lara complex, where women find playing as a woman extremely attractive because they get to lead the game, something they typically are denied in real life. So, I mean, there is that side of it as well, where, I don't know, what do you prefer?
I will always prefer to play as a lady when I can, just because so much when I was growing up, I was hey, where am I? There are no women in this world. What's up?
It wasn't Metroid awesome.
Right, exactly, and that was the
yeah
moment for me when I was a kid.
Me too.
Amazing. And it's kind of interesting. I have another colleague of mine who's doing research specifically on I think one of a working title of her dissertation was how to spot a real girl in Azeroth, which is awesome.
Oh boy.
So she's looking directly at sort of gender implications in World of Warcraft, and she finds that that sometimes when it comes to cross-gender play, there's also these sort of not so savory aspect of it of men engaging in cross-gender play, because hey man, if I'm gonna stare at someone's butt for a bajillion hours, might as well look cute.
Be a female.
Or the idea is well, I get stuff. I get stuff because people think which is kind of a funky catch-22, because it's, I don't trust that you're a girl, prove it, send me a picture or something, but then at the same time, I trust so much that you're a girl that I'm gonna just send you gold, I'm gonna send you roses and presents. It's kind of a funky disconnect that sometimes happens.
It's also a weird disconnect in the terms of that person's mindset is I didn't pick a female character because I'm a dude, therefore dudes don't pick female characters. It's suspect if they do. It's wait, then it becomes this weird thing where suddenly now this female is under suspicion because, oh, somebody who was a dude decided to play a girl, now I don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
Mike, who do you play as?
Well, the terrifying thing is, and probably this is one of the core problems, is that no one ever goes, oh, yeah, you're probably a girl playing that guy. No one ever does it. No one
Yeah.
ever accuses anyone.
Which is
it's
why I
weird
like
because it's like there's no perceived advantage in playing a guy because again the classic problem of oh well that's the default. That
You really a
is-
dude? I
Yeah.
got presents for you if you're a dude. Send me photos. Prove it.
Snapchat. Sorry, I haven't manscaped today.
Who do you play as?
Me?
Yeah.
Given the chance, and I've been called out by friends on this. I have a type, and that type essentially is Cassandra Pendergast. I will always play black hair, probably short, girl who kicks a lot of ass, and that is just kind of a character archetype I really think is awesome. And then Dave, I guess, just read the win and went, fine, I'll just make you one. I'm like, oh, cool, thank you. So thankfully, I'm not on the I don't create the character, so it isn't purely a Mary Sue. But the nice thing is that archetype for me is one that's kind of cool because it ends up like it essentially for me grounds the experience into something fantastical in the sense that it goes against kind of the here's piles of history books about how all these great male war leaders and all these men. I'm like, well, okay. I kind of think that's bullshit because I've met my wife and she is a force of nature, and I cannot imagine a world in which she's like, oh well, I'll just sew. No, she'd probably be out there murdering people with me, which would be nice. But the nice thing is as well is that it helps create a more fantastical experience for me, which is that it lets me go, okay, cool, this isn't me. This clearly isn't me. So I can start exploring, especially in our games or like any Obsidian or any games like that where you're making choices, you're digging into consequences. I can do it from a different perspective and kind of dissociate myself so that it's like, okay, I'm not doing these bad things or good things. I'm just kind of making a call, and I often will run through a character that I've built kind of a set of rules. My most famous being Mama Bear Shepherd, who was super nice if you were on her crew, but would fucking end you if you were anyone else, right? So and the intriguing thing about that is that throughout Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2, because I took her through the whole trilogy, she basically was pretty much all renegade because almost everybody you dealt with was external to your crew, right? When you made your big decisions, it's like, oh well, I'm gonna end this jail cell because it's corrupt. I'm gonna, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when you got to Mass 3, she suddenly started sliding right into the middle because the majority of the plot givers were ex-crew, and so Mama Bear Shepherd had that set of rules, which is I'm protective of my crew. So Miranda, okay, we're gonna do the Paragon. We're gonna Paragon, and it created this really intriguing arc for me, which again was nice because I would never be that character, but I'm allowed to play that character because I can kind of keep it away from myself in a way that I still identify.
So I have to ask, like, how does Bioware make these character creation tools knowing that it's going to cripple so many people and just cause so much pain and anguish? And like what kind of player data have you seen since Inquisition came out with like what people are doing?
Sure. So probably the most important thing is to know that it's crippling to us too. It is a ridiculous amount of work to make CareGen, especially when you've decided midstream, because we decided to extend the project, that we were going to add 3 new races who were all different heights and head shapes. And anyway, so that's why we don't just make hairstyles as you might have wanted. So there's your answer to that. But the thing is, it's an enormous amount of work. But at the same time, what we recognize is, and we've seen the difference even on Dragon Age from cool, hey, you can be an elf, you can be a dwarf, you can be a human, to Dragon Age 2, where you can be a hawk, right, who is always human. And there was a significant backlash to that. Some people thought it was really cool. They got, oh, okay, cool, it's a different experience. But also, I love being an elf, I love being a dwarf, so, how dare you? Which is fair. Like that's good critique because it's like, okay, cool. And we would get people in and get them to articulate why they wanted that experience. And some were like me, they wanted a different experience. Some just felt that we'd taken options away and that there was a value to the options even if they weren't chosen. And that actually colored a lot of our discussions. So one of the things we did, of course, is Dragon Age Inquisition moved to the Frostbite engine. So it was a complete technical overhaul, right? Everything that was kind of there had to be rebuilt from the ground up. And some of our character art leads were being very ambitious, so they built the system from the ground up to use more targets instead of slider points, to accommodate a number of different elements, to have skin shaders and such to work for Gen 4. So all those things together created this kind of combinatorial explosion of how long it takes to make the character. But it also opened up for us some things like being able to do darker skin properly, because the Eclipse engine did not do that very well. Isabella was literally as dark as a character could be without going into splotchland, which was just a weird technical thing I don't personally understand, but I was assured, and they showed me the results, and it was horrifying. But also like being able to have a much more subtle skin shader texture and stuff that we partly inherited, partly had built up because we had time to do it from the ground up, meant that we could have freckles and tattoos and scars. Not on Gen 3, but anyway, on the newer machines, they had the memory for it, they could maintain it, that we could have high resolution models and stuff. So recognizing that we could have these really high fidelity characters for the most part, obviously there were some gags, but allowed us to say, okay, well, this is worthwhile to do it, and so we ended up investing in sliders instead of just notched positions, so that you could find that subtlety that made it really yours, that one little quirk of the cheekbone placement or what have you. And what we see with our players is that there is a very, very deep engagement with CareGen. A lot of people, taking their EA access. You have 6 hours to play and like live streaming it. And like I went and checked, and there were people still half an hour in of this 6 hour limited time thing, and they were still making their character. And I'm like, wow. Or they'd make it, play through a bit of it, and then go, cool, that's a throwaway character because I won't like it. So that was really important, and certainly validated that decision. And the other thing we saw, and this was a big thing for me coming out of CareGen, is I've come away with this thesis that I'm trying to gather evidence for, and I'm not positive yet, but that I believe that character generation is, in general, a very intentional thing. And one of the things we did to test that, because it's always good to test, and we gather telemetry about player choices. Obviously, we don't do it by player because I don't even want to know, nor do I think that's cool. But we gather kind of general statistics. And one of the things I checked was in Dragon Age 2 versus Dragon Age Inquisition, what was the split of characters created by gender? And this is probably the most interesting thing to me, because they were essentially the same, about 37% to 34%, depending on region, were female, right? Okay, so A, that's super significant. That is a lot of female characters being made. But the thing the Inquisition did that not all people notice is when you made your character, it kind of put up the deck of cards, and it was elf, human, Canari, dwarf. And then you had to hit the bumper to switch genders. And which gender went up first was random. So it wasn't always men. Sometimes it was women, right? And what I wanted to see was, are players just going A, and I made my character? Because if they were, what we should have seen is the distribution for female to male change, right? Because if it had just been AAA in Dragon Age 2 and Dragon Age Origins, it would have just been male, human, warrior, go, right? And that's basically what you would have gotten. We didn't see it change. So this for me is the first point of data for my theory that when people make a character, they actually engage with it. And I think that goes to, hey, you bought a role-playing game, you kind of knew what you were getting into. I don't think there's a whole lot of random, but we didn't actually know until we actually got that data back. And also, for me, seeing a wide range of female characters, like, well, that's a pretty good reason for us to keep making them.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
That's very cool.
Do you? Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna do an audience poll. How many of you spent more than half an hour making your Dragon Age character, Mass Effect character? An hour?
I'm just gonna write that down.
More than an hour? Hour and a half?
Holy shit.
Jesus, guys.
2 hours?
It was 10 years ago.
Holy crap, you guys.
Some
How long did it
of
take
it-
you, mister? My hand is up still.
So, over about the course of a week.
Woo! Wait, was that one
I just can't.
character?
It's been 3 days. I just need a break.
And said, I can't do this. And I created a Kunari and said, I can't do this. And I created a dwarf and said, I can't do this. And finally, I settled on a female.
Hey.
There's a lot of I can't even here. That's awesome. Wow. That's also very involved.
Yes, it was a little much.
My question for you, Mike, is since Inquisition came out and you talked about like the breadth of variety and fidelity of these characters, do you still have a group of people or like a person who is like, oh, I really like the game, but I couldn't make me?
I think No, I haven't received that feedback. What I have seen is, people want to be a city elf, not a Dalish. Like they want a specific variation. Usually, what you see is it was one that was previously available, so it's kind of a bummer it isn't here now.
Right, like my city elf from Origins, and I want to repeat that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But nothing like personal. It's all like in fiction.
I personally haven't had any of those. Nothing anecdotal.
Sure.
We haven't seen major complaints there. Obviously, I think the biggest concern is it's pretty much long hair for female Canary, right? That's probably the biggest. With horns are tricky, turns out. Real tricky.
I just wanted more horns.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But that's just it is. There's always a request for more, but I haven't seen I can't do me. And I think that's probably cool. The other one is actually like tight curl hairstyles, like an afro or that kind of look. I don't think we went as far in, but again, that just kind of falls under the blanket of more hair, please.
Sure.
But that one I think that one's actually pretty good because it's one where I personally think that was a miss because we could have done better on those because they kind of tie into skin color and there's that representation.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it hasn't been any particular negativity on it, which is good.
Talking about races sort of leads into our next point. Something else that Nina and I were talking about when we were putting together this panel. When the feelings that influence your character choices when maybe let's say you're playing Mario Kart and you don't want to play as Princess Peach, you're a gal and you don't want to be Peach, but Mario doesn't really appeal to you. So in honor of that conversation, we have called this the Yoshi effect.
I 100% like I would much rather play as Yoshi. Like I feel like I identify more with like a dinosaur than like Princess Peach. I'm not like that. I'm not like a girl like that. So I'm more of like this green dinosaur. It's weird. I know it's weird, but it's just like I just don't like it. And I mean I know like when like my husband and I are playing like Mario World, like I play as Luigi and he plays as Princess Peach because for whatever reason, I mean, it's like having that, they're very complementary, but again, I'm just not as good as like floating around and he's just much better at that than I am. And so that's just like, that's how we roll. And we even got like Wiimotes that we have a Peach and we have a Luigi and like we're all into it. Like it's,
Yeah. You have a weird Mario Kart choice as well, don't you?
Do I? Dragons is pretty cool. I don't know. I forgot the story if I told you a Mario story. Sorry.
I forgot it too, which is why I brought it up.
Oh no. I mean, like you're gonna allow me this one Dota 2 anecdote, please. I play a lot of Dota 2, which has 109 characters, and League of Legends is the same thing, right? Like massive roster of characters, tons of variety in terms of characters, genders, races, monsters, whatever. Whenever I'm at a loss for what to do in terms of like what I want to play, like regardless of a role, some days it's like, I want to play Lena because she's this like awesome redhead sorceress.
She's your waifu.
Jesus. My wife. Or like I don't want to play as like this brutish like Beastmaster guy. He's like big muscles, he's got axes, cool guy. Like I'll just default to Earthshaker, who's this like big lumbering dumb looking dog. Because I love dogs. I'm like, I'll just play Earthshaker because he's a big dog. That's it, like I had the exact same thing where like I don't know what to do, so I default to a creature of some kind, which is, I don't know, it's like a weird psychological thing that we both turn to.
Mike, do you see more people picking other races than they do human?
No, human is still predominantly the character we see.
Yawn.
Interesting.
Wow. Humans are boring. Humans are so
boring.
Be adventurous.
Yeah.
Which
I wonder if that's a result of like in Dragon Age and in Mass Effect as well, and most games, the player avatar is predominantly humanoid, like bipedal, two arms, one face. I wonder if that's like, if I'm gonna play a humanoid character, I don't want to have horns. I might as well just play like a human. I wonder if that's a result of that.
I don't know. I think if you're hard into DA lore and you're kind of like, yeah, man, I know this world and that kind of stuff. There is the human it's easy mode, right? In the sense of like the humans in Inquisition are like of a noble family, whereas the elves are like, oh, I'm an outcast by my tribe, or I was here infiltrating, or the dwarves are all like part of a criminal gang. So it's like they have a tougher go.
Yeah.
And we try to call that out at a couple points over the course of the game, like the different board tables. Salam Shirel is actually easier as a human. It's way harder as a Canary because you take like a 20-point standing hit just by showing up. Yeah. And so court standing opens a non-combat ending if you want it. So Canary has a tough time getting there. On the other hand, dating Sarah is super easy if you're a Canary because she kind of has a fetish.
Speaking of fetishes, we're going to talk about boners now. We had this conversation via email as we were planning this panel. The idea of sex as a goal and whether or not knowing that you're gonna get some later on in a game, if that affects the way that you create yourself. And I know you have a lot to say about this.
I think for me, it's less about like who I want to make. Like if I see a trailer or like you guys have had like relationship or love interest trailers in the past. If I see something, oh, that character looks really interesting, I would like to romance them. I don't think I tailor my character so much to that experience as I do. I just decide like, all right, I'm going to go out of my way to talk to this person. And at that point, I'm not talking to that person because I find them interesting in the lore. I'm doing it because I'm like, yeah, we're going to bang. Yeah, and it's especially a problem, like, achievements have made that a huge issue for me, because I think like Mass Effect has the Paramore achievement, and it's the last thing you get before you win the game.
Yeah.
It's like that you spend all these instances after main missions talking to somebody in the cargo hold, and it's becoming increasingly heated over time because you're picking all the flirtatious options, and the payoff is at the very end. It's like, all right, we did it. Now let's go save the world. And that's like, in the context of the universe, that's often a problem in games for me, because there's urgency and there's danger and there's bigger problems than getting laid. And I don't know, I was gonna pick your brain about how that comes to be, because more often than not, and games, especially at Bioware, it's getting better. Like, you are developing actual relationships with these characters, but why for so long were video game relationships kind of built that way?
Well, let's see. Okay, so typically whenever we're doing any progression within story stuff, ultimately under the hood there's a computer down there, and that computer responds to ones and zeros, right? Is this true? Is this true? And so when we started to build them the first time around, we've tried, early days, we tried a couple of different approaches. One was saying the right thing at the right time, and that was kind of like a one and done, and then you were finished. So that was like certain comments had to be made at certain points. Anytime we tried something that was more complicated, simply because we were trying to figure out the space. I don't know if anyone like engaged with Jahira in BG2. You probably didn't unless you had a patch that fans ended up making, because that thing was a tangled mess, right? Jahira would break 18 different ways because she left the party and all. Yeah, this guy's nodding, he knows. Yeah. I gave it a try. Jahira was virtually impossible to actually like carry through the course of the game without her just shutting down and never talking to you again. But as we proceeded to do it, we would try kind of like okay, we're going to do beats that happen at moments. Then we tried the more like, all right, let's just track kind of a glowing kind of overall approval over time, right? And the stuff you say has an effect, and it basically was adding or reducing to a score. And both of those approaches feel pretty gamey by nature. So what we tried to do with Inquisition, and I think this is just an outgrowth of that, is that we decided not to hook everything to approval, not to hook everything just to talking, not to hook everything to specific time beats, but instead to use a mix of all three for all characters. So Iron Bull has a block of different things that you can interact with. Since he's on screen, I'll use him as our example. One of his better moments, which can be friendly or is a chance for you to flirt, is triggered by you actually killing a dragon with him present. And then he takes you out drinking because that was amazing, right? And that's kind of the Bull stuff. And it's a chance to flirt. But again, with him, he basically shows no response to your flirting. He isn't like, well, hello there. He doesn't warm up. He doesn't do anything until you flirted enough times, reached enough point in the game, and gone drinking with him, and met the Chargers. And then he shows up in your bedroom and says, okay, I get it. I don't know if you get it, right? And then it gets all kinky, which is great, because it's super consensual and things are cool. And again, Patrick Weeks did an amazing job with them. But that's a very different template than we've used before, because it's a mixture of different inputs that, to my mind, kind of hides the gaminess of it and removes some of that, like, okay, good, you have given me some cake, here is cake. You know, which, to be fair, was Origins and Sweater. And,
Yeah.
You know, and I apologize. Like, it wasn't horrible, but it was, again, super gamey, and it felt kind of like you were playing sex, and it was really awkward. So,
yeah. I think one of my favorite video game relationship things is I played through all of Mass Effect as a man because I'm a heretic. Say what you will, that guy's great. Mark Meir is awesome. But I played through that game. I think Mass Effect 2 is when they introduced Kelly Chambers, and I met Chambers, and she's this like awesome, warm, bubbly personality on this ship full of like bummer people because the world is in a bad place. And I was like, oh, she's great. Like, I'll spend time talking to her. And the choices kept reflecting like increasingly flirtatious choices. And I was like, all right, cool. And I was following that path. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna build a relationship with her. You cannot have a relationship with Yeoman Chambers as a man. And I thought that was really awesome that it's like you can have that response to her and you can engage her as though you are like, oh, I'm gonna seduce this woman. And she's like, no, dude, I am gay and I'm not into you at all. That was awesome.
That's Cassandra has that same kind of awkward discussion if you flip with her as a girl.
That's so
Broke
good.
my heart.
Sorry.
I tried so hard.
I know.
So
Yeah,
hard.
and then Sarah has probably some of the best letdowns. Oh yeah, because we're into the same thing. So no, and yeah, so it, like actually, but again, those add I think to the texture because it makes what character have you chosen to play? It adds a degree of like, wow, yeah, okay, I can try to play with these characters, and then they just like, no, let's just go with that.
Yeah, that's the best thing is when a game can convince you that like this relationship is real in the context of the fiction and not as a result of some systems.
Yeah.
Or like if you go into a game like this or any RPG, like I'm gonna play this kind of character so that I can achieve this kind of relationship. At that point, for me, like you're already doing it wrong, and that's I don't know. For me, like I just don't like to approach games that way.
So there's one thing though that we did. Sorry guys. There's one more thing that I did, and I kind of like super wrestled with myself for a while. Before Inquisition came out, I did release. Here are the romantic combinations.
Oh yeah, that was you.
Yeah, that was me. That was me. Somebody had to. And you know, if it's maybe going to be bad news, like about Solus, I want me to get yelled at rather than the team, right? It's better that way because the team has a lot of very important work to do, and I can go drinking to forget. But so releasing that kind of information was one of those things where we actually had like a lot of long discussions. Is this a good thing? Is it spoilers? Should we do this? Because it is spoilerific. So I basically wrote a blog post saying, you know, okay, so here it is, it's coming, and you know there will be enough text that you won't just glance to it. And essentially I said the reasoning behind this is that the game is big, like it is, and we're not, this isn't a marketing beat, this is just literally us recognizing that this game takes a long freaking time before you even maybe get to like the point where, oh, the Solus romance could even begin, for an example. And Solus was only into female elves, right? That was it. So if you rolled like a Canary female or a dwarf female or a human female, and like you were like, man, Solus, I'm so excited about Solari's romance or whatever, and you're like 60 hours into the game or 40 hours into the game, right? And put in a work week. I feel that that's pretty disappointing if that's a vector of an experience you want to have, right? So I basically wrapped it into all kinds of spoiler paper and said, okay, so, but if you really need to be sure, or maybe you can ask your friends and they can only show you the one or something, I wanted to give people that opportunity because I thought that would kind of suck, right? If we were like, yeah, you can roll a mage, do I get spells? Right, like that's not fun, right? The expectation was there. So that was a tough one. I'm still not quite sure if it was the right call. If maybe we should have just said nothing, but it was the right call. All right, cool. All right,
We appreciate it. We appreciate it. So our last point before we like get out of time, we mentioned at the beginning of the panel that we were going to sort of touch briefly on like how we identify with pre-made characters like Lara Croft or Nathan Drake. And I know I personally, I had a problem for about 2 years where I thought I was Lightning from Final Fantasy 13. To the chagrin of my family and my friends, I cosplayed her.
I think there's an actual term for that.
I dyed my hair pink, like I did the whole shebang, and it was awful. And you have a really interesting story about Lilith from Borderlands.
I'm Lilith. There's no whatever.
Glad to have you here.
But why are you Lilith?
But why am I Lilith? So, okay, this is probably going to, I don't know, it might appear in some sort of article form or something in the next few weeks. But case in point, my husband and I play games together, and it used to be like him in one virtual world playing an FPS and me playing World of Warcraft, and nowhere the two shall meet. Until we found Borderlands, which had the best of both worlds, and it was amazing. And he would yell at me to do things like reload undercover, which is weird. And then I would tell him things like, why did you not open that mailbox? There's something important in there. There's something important in everything. Open everything. And he rolled Roland. I rolled Lilith because I said, hey, red hair and tattoos. Did. And I always played as a mage wherever possible, and she was the closest magey thing I had. And then sure enough, when Borderlands 2 comes out and our like accidental ship becomes canon, spoilers, I guess. Like it was such like a really big deal because we had spent like so much time with those characters and to the point that I kind of like lopped off half my hair and I started cosplaying as her, and it was just really cool. Like that game is just wrapped up in so much like emotional awesomeness that I had no choice. Because she's awesome and she's sassy and she's great.
What about you, Nana?
Well, actually, speaking of Borderlands, I was actually really, I haven't really had much chance to play with it, but like I was excited about like the Nisha character because, well, I mean it's like it's an Indian name. I don't know if you know, but it's like it's kind
My
of
mind
cool.
immediately went like the serial person, the person from the podcast.
The Nisha call.
Yeah, no, but it's cool because she's like this brown girl, and that like almost never happens, you know. So that was like really interesting to me. But I mean, so because I generally like playing like a guy, like I don't know, like so GTA series is probably like one of my favorite like games ever, and like playing GTA 5, like being able to be like 3 different types of dude was like so much fun for me. Like I really loved it. Like I really liked being like Trevor because he's just like the worst, right? Like it's just so fun. It's like fun being white trash. I never get to be white trash. Like it's so fun. Like, you know, I don't know what that's like. So it was just like this like awesome experience, and like I just really got into it, and like I don't know, I just like really enjoyed it and got like invested in it. And so I don't know, again, like I'm always on the other side of it where I'm trying to play as a character who's not really me, but I really enjoy the experience of that.
How many of you have played Overwatch out on the show floor? Oh God, guys, it's
let's
so
get
good. Tell them, name drop me, cut the line. There you go.
Go play as Zarya.
So, but yeah, that's exactly what I was going to mention.
Cool.
They have a very good spread of characters, and they're all pre-made. They have their own backstory, their own personality, and the ethnicity and the just like the body types that are being represented in that cast are so amazing. And I know when that game comes out, I'm going to play as Zarya. She was actually introduced this weekend, and she is a former Russian bodybuilder, and she's this tall, like stocky, muscular woman. And I immediately, like I could not, like he said, when you play Overwatch, switch characters every round. I did not. And I played as Zarya.
I didn't.
Because I am not like, I enjoy burritos, I am not a stick. Like, and she is this like beautiful, like buxom woman, and I'm like, I identify with her because she is someone that I like feel like I can identify with, that I look like. So I just think that game is doing like so many good things for that kind of representation.
Which is interesting because Blizzard has traditionally been very bad at
Yes,
this.
they have.
Yeah,
it's very good.
Also, fighting games are interesting in this way. So I've played fighting games for, I mean, mostly Street Fighter for many years. It's, again, another favorite. But I used to always play, you know, because back in the day there weren't that many characters. I mean, now there's like, oh my God, so many. But like, I always play as Ryu, and like that was who I liked playing as. But then when like Sakura was an option, I was like, oh cool, it's like a female version, like a cuter girl version of, and I was like a teenager at the time, so I was like really excited about that. But I don't know, I still always kind of default to Ryu sometimes because I feel, I don't know, there's like this like feeling of power, like because there's this whole thing. I mean, I think you learn this like in college or whatever. But there's a whole thing of like how much space people take on a screen, and like what that means, and what it means for presence of that character or that person in a TV show or whatever it is. And so like, you know, being a big character, or being someone like Zangief, for example, you know, like, I mean, I'm usually just button mashing when I'm playing as him, but I just feel powerful. I just feel like this large, awesome, powerful man.